Welcome everybody to our Veterans Town Hall. We're actually here today because we want to make sure that all of our veterans are aware of all the resources that are available. We think it's really important to collaborate at a local, state, and federal level. And we're here to answer any questions. And well, first, I have to thank each and every one of our veterans who will be watching this. Without your service, your sacrifice, and your dedication, we couldn't be here doing what we're doing today. So we owe you immense amount of gratitude. I'd also like to let everybody know that if you guys have any questions and you'd like to have more information on the resources, to please contact our homeless and behavioral health team. And the phone number for that is area code 714-536-5576. Or you can also contact our Veterans Resource Center, which is at the Central Library. And that number is 714-375-5111. I did have some questions about the Veterans Resource Center recently that people were worried that they will not be in the library. Want to say, please don't. There's nothing to worry about. Our veterans will always be prioritized. The Veterans Resource Center will remain at Central Library. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, our chief, Para, who's also our city manager, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. So I'd like to actually call up our police chief, aka city manager, Chief Para, and who's going to say a few words.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mayor. Whoa. Okay, there we go. Now we got it. Everybody gets up there and has to find that range. Well, from the city perspective, we are committed to servicing our veterans. We are committed to providing the highest quality of services in anything that we do, from helping you with assistance like on our water bill that we just had to raise a little bit, to helping you get our to mobility plans, to getting our simple as tree trimming, or getting our water quality is very high in the city. We're going to keep it high. Streets, anything that we can do to make the life of our veterans better, we want to, and we are committed to that because everybody knows without you we wouldn't be here. It's pretty simple, and that's the sacrifice veterans have made. Allow me to sit here and say things and allow us to be here. So I'll never forget that. We will never forget that as a city. But I would like for everybody to know that if we don't know about a problem, we can't fix it. And I think it's a real issue in the city that we don't get a lot of reporting when there are problems. So if veterans are having issues and they need some resources, call the city. Go on to My HB app. Look at some of the resources. Get a hold of the city manager's office. We'll direct you, and we will not fail you. We will get you the right resources, and we will make sure that you're taken care of. So, but I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate you being here, and we are committed to being here for you. So thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce our Senator Janet Wynn, where she'll talk to you a little bit about some of the resources at a state level.
Thank you, Mayor. Ooh, that is loud. Oh, that was a shocker. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the privilege. I just flew back in from Sacramento, and we're in Denham today in honor of making sure that people understand and remember to fight against sexual assault against women. And that's actually the capital today. Every one of us were Denham to show our support for women across the world. It is my privilege to serve you in the California State Legislature. I would again want to thank our Mayor, Gracey Van Der Mark, and the city for hosting tonight's Veterans Town Hall. There are over 10,000 veterans who call Huntington Beach home. This topic is definitely very deeply personal and important to me because my brother served in Iraq as a U.S. Marine veteran. In California, nearly 1.8 million veterans reside in our state, more than any other state. Our veteran makes communities stronger by their work ethic, devotions to duty, and love of our country. Once discharged, many are able to change back into civilian life However, Sally, that is not true for a significant portion who encounter difficulties adjusting to life outside of the military. And I'll give you a personal story. When I was over 15 years ago, my brother just left and finished his service in the Marines. And I was a county supervisor. And as a county supervisor, you know, the county has the county Veterans Resources Fair, office, and you name it. We have all the resources within the county. So as a county supervisor, I know all these information on all these resources. And so after my brother served, we would go over to friends and family's house, and every time we would go over to a friend or a family's house, we would be like, oh, next time we'll go to your house. He's like, yeah. And we would say, every time he goes, yeah, next time my place. And he would keep on saying that. And so one time, my husband, our family got there a little early to this one barbecue, and we got there a little early. We saw my brother's truck all the way down the street. And I'm like, wow, he's here pretty early. So I went over and looked at the truck. He has mattress in there. My own brother was having a hard time adjusting to civilian life. And as a county supervisor, it broke my heart because I knew the resources and I didn't even know about the symptoms or be able to even help him. So it's very dear to me that we have to fight for our veterans. And as your state legislator, I've been named the Legislator of the Year by the Vietnam Veterans of America, by the American Legion, you name it, because for the last 8 years, we've done so many bills and so many legislations to help our veterans and their family in whatever way we can in the state. The California Department of Veterans Affairs offers resources to our veterans, which includes access to home loans, education benefits, employment services, along with healthcare and mental health assistance. There is even a crisis hotline specifically for our veterans that can be reached by calling 988, then by pressing 1. All this can be found in calvet.ca.gov, or even by contacting my office. My district office number is 714-374-4000. 374-4000. We are here for you, and we want to make sure we help because you have served our country. And for someone like me who escaped communism, came to this country, and was able to find refuge here, and was sponsored by a church group to come to America. Just think about this. A young girl spoke no English, 5 years old, come to this country, very poor, receiving government assistance, welfare, food stamp, you name it. 30 years later, she's able to walk into the Capitol as a state senator. I was only able to do that because of you. You serve our country, and you've given this young girl an opportunity of a life. I'm indebted to you. Our country is indebted to you. And we need to make sure we do whatever we can. And later in the summer, we are right now working with the DMV and many other organizations within the State Department, and we'll be hosting and working with the mayor as well to host a larger resource fair for our veterans, whether that be helping you with getting your designation on your DMV license, and we will have the department there assisting you versus having you go all the way to Santa Ana and waiting in line. But we will do a lot more, and we're bringing together lots of individuals and organizations that would touch every part that we can try to find and assist. And I'm also the senator, the only legislator in Orange County that has 2 military bases. Los Alamitos Joint Forces bases and the Seal Beach Naval Weapon Base. So anything we can do, please feel free to reach out to our office, and then we will communicate with the city and the staff as well when we finalize our fair or actually our Veterans Affair Expo that we will be hosting sometime in the summer. Again, thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you do. I also want to give a plug out to your family as well, because I know that you can't do what you do to stand there to protect our country without your family standing by your side. And so thank you so much.
Next, we're going to have our homeless services manager, Jessica Kelly, and Lieutenant Brian Smith, who's in charge of our homeless task force. And they're going to talk to you about some of our resources here at a local level.
One of the populations that we never want to see experiencing homelessness are the people who served for our country. In 2022, according to the point-in-time count, there were 280 veterans in Orange County experiencing homelessness. 135 were sheltered, and 145 were without shelter, either living on the streets or in their cars. Here in Huntington Beach, we have outreach social workers and homeless task force officers who actively engage people who are experiencing homelessness and link them to resources. So in 2023, our officers and our social workers spoke with 64 veterans experiencing homelessness, 27 of who had local ties or were experiencing homelessness in Huntington Beach. We sometimes meet veterans from other cities because we have resources here like food distribution from our local churches that they will come for, or we have our outreach line that they'll call into for resources. Whenever we meet any veteran experiencing homelessness, we want to make sure that they're linked to services, that they're linked to a service provider as well as Veteran Affairs. When our outreach team engages a veteran who is willing to accept services, the first thing they do is check to make sure that they are already connected to Veteran Affairs as well as their discharge status. We will connect them to Veteran Affairs either through the community coordinated entry system, or in certain situations where somebody is more vulnerable, we will reach out to Brian Tom, who will be speaking tonight, or somebody directly to get them connected as quickly as possible. Our social workers will then work with them on getting their DD-214. We often reach out to Frank and Noella for this, as well as Brian Tom. And we'll work with them on getting other vital documents like their birth certificates, their social security cards, and identification cards, anything that they're going to be needing once they are matched to some sort of housing opportunity through the Veteran Affairs. Our outreach teams referred 27 veterans to shelter in 2023 and continue to work with those that maybe shelter wasn't the best match for them. So they will work with them at street level when shelter isn't the best match. And of those ones, they permanently housed 4 veterans. There's many barriers to working with veterans, which I will let Lieutenant Smith touch on more, as he is a veteran, and he understands those barriers very well. But I want to share an example of a veteran that we worked with recently who was very willing to accept any opportunities that were available to him. Our outreach officers and our social workers decided to collaborate on an outreach event in an area that was sort of hard to get to and not somewhere that our social workers would typically go. Because of this outreach event, they were able to meet Manuel. Manuel is a 78-year-old veteran. He had been experiencing homelessness for 10 years and had never connected to a service provider during that time. He had several medical issues. He was losing his eyesight, and he was receiving help at the VA hospital in Long Beach. But because he had never disclosed that he was experiencing homelessness, he had no idea that there was so many services available. We knew that he was incredibly vulnerable and we needed to act quickly. So we reached out directly to Brian Tom, and from the day we met him, 6 days later, he moved into transitional housing at the Cabrillo Veteran Project in Long Beach. He will stay there until they can move him into permanent supportive housing or a higher level of care as they think he may be needing. I recently learned that he's become quite a favorite around there. He has a great personality. He's very friendly. He has 3 meals a day. He has medical, he has vision, and he has housing support. So it was a really great fit for him, and he's made a lot of friends. So this is an example of what can happen in certain situations when a veteran is willing to accept the programs or the services that are out there. But that is not always the case. So I'm going to let Lieutenant Smith touch on some of the barriers we run into when working with this population.
Thank you, Jessica. As most of you know, the police department has always taken an active role in engaging our community of unhoused veterans, both in just general contacts and in moments of crisis. We specifically have been fortunate that since the inception of the police department's homeless task force, we've always had at least one veteran assigned to our team. And that wasn't planned that way, it just happens because our veterans want to give back to their community and support everything. So they're willing to stand up and take on the role of the homeless task force officer. In fact, myself, I am a veteran, and 2 out of the 4 homeless task force officers we currently have are combat veterans, which gives us a unique perspective to engage those individuals experiencing homelessness. We also have numerous other officers and professional staff who are veterans and actively recruit in our military communities for staff. One thing we've recognized is many times those issues leading to homelessness are directly correlated to their time serving our country, including mental health, substance abuse, victimization, and various forms of trauma, which tend to be barriers making our veterans resistant to accepting services. There's also a misunderstanding of who is eligible for services, with many thinking they're not eligible unless they were honorably discharged, which is false. And those incidents that led them to being discharged, that I mentioned earlier, tend to linger and go on without treatment or assistance, making the situation more difficult to get out of. It even took me 18 years to understand what benefits I was entitled to, and I served in command positions where I did exit interviews and helped prepare enlisted men and women for discharge. Thankfully, we have individuals like those you'll hear from after me to explain what is available for our veteran community. But most of all, one of the biggest barriers is pride. There's a level of pride that every veteran carries with them, that is ingrained in them from the first day of boot camp for the rest of their life. Pride in making a commitment to every person calling this great country home, making lifelong sacrifices so that others can enjoy freedoms and liberties. How do we get through those barriers? It takes time and patience. We cannot force anybody into a process, but we can help guide them on a journey. With their military backgrounds, we as sworn officers oftentimes have the benefit of rank and titles which veterans respect. Over time, we can help break through those barriers and help them navigate and patiently stand by next to our brothers and sisters to help them navigate the systems that can assist them in becoming housed and utilizing all the benefits they are entitled to. Please do not hesitate to reach out to the police department or any of our homeless services if you or anybody you know are in need of assistance. We are there for them.
We are fortunate tonight to have Frank and Noella Passarelli here. They volunteer tremendous amount of hours running our Veteran Resource Center at the Central Library. So I'd like to call Noella up. Let's see if I can get this. There we go.
Full slide.
Thank you.
Full slide.
Oh, it's not working. Brian. Goodness. So I can unplug it and plug it back in.
Oh, here it comes. Is it just the part that's left?
Oh, there it is. All right. Just had to hit it.
Good evening. I'm Noella Passarelli, and Frank Passarelli is there from the Veterans Resource Center. Thank you, Mayor and Senator. Well, she's not here anymore. She left. We are from the Veterans Resource Center located in the Central Library, and our main focus is dedicated to supporting the veterans that are located in Huntington Beach, Fountain Valley, and Costa Mesa on various levels. not just homelessness, but we work with the veterans as well as their families. We focus mostly on the families. But when we have single veterans, we can help out with, the food cards, the gas cards, educational benefits, also regarding the helping them file any claims that they're eligible for. We actually have a certified VSO officer that comes in twice a month by appointment that can help these veterans file for their claims. In regards to the families that are homelessness they face, we reach out to Brian Toms at CRRC to help them navigate, and hopefully they can get into a HUD-VASH that will then get them into housing. The one thing that one of our success stories that we had probably about 3-4 months ago, we had a family, had a couple, they had 3 children, and they were all living in a car. We got them into a hotel for the time being, working with a HUD-VASH. But we also have established an arrangement with another organization that I volunteer at, where the children could go and get clothes, and they could go and get a few housewares to put in their new apartment. So with various organizations here within Huntington Beach, we have managed to help the veterans and their families. We also have brochures there that identify the various food pantries and any shelters, or they can go and get showers, meals that are served. All of those resources are available in the Veterans Resource Center, and we're open Monday through Thursday from 2 to 6. There's a volunteer. Friday from 9 to 1. Or, again, as Mayor was saying, you can call us at 714-375-5111. Thank you.
I would now like to invite Brian Tom from Veteran Affairs, who's the first point of contact for a lot of the veterans in need.
Oh, I did a video.
I gotta make things difficult for you.
Why does it look like that? Oh, it doesn't up there. Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, I don't know how formal this is. I was planning on just soliciting questions throughout, but should I just wait till the end or what?
That's great. If you could just repeat that in the microphone though, because we're live streaming.
Thank you so much for having me here. I mean, I really appreciate being given the opportunity to talk about this. This is a subject that is really near and dear to my heart, as at one point I was a homeless veteran. And unfortunately, I don't really have time to tell the whole story because there's a lot of stuff to go through. But I'll never forget the morning when I got up, dumped a bottle of water on my head in my van that I was living out of, threw some shampoo on there, and then I put on my 3-piece suit and went to go interview for a job as a life coach. I did not get the job, and the irony was not lost on me at the time. But the point of the story is I was living out of a van for about 4 months, and it never even occurred to me to go to the VA to look for resources. And basically what my job is to do my best to make sure that that doesn't happen to any other veteran. So I'm going to be talking about resources for homeless veterans. This is specific to Orange County. A lot of these same resources are going to apply for veterans really all over the country, but for right now we're just talking about Orange County. Now, this slide I'm going to actually read out to you. I promise this is going to be the last of my reading. So, services for veterans include linkage with medical, dental, and mental health care, referrals for employment opportunities, help to obtain clothing and bus tokens, referrals for residential substance abuse treatment and training or long-term housing, and linkage or referrals to various other VA and community resources. All homeless veterans or veterans who are at risk for homelessness may be assessed by the outreach workers, although not all veterans will be appropriate or eligible for every service or resource. Okay, done reading now. Now we're going to start off with defining some terms, and this is all just going to be for the purposes of whether you're eligible for VA housing resources. So if there's somebody who doesn't necessarily fall into this, I'm not saying they're not a veteran, I'm just trying to say who's eligible. So basically, you just need to go to basic training for a day, and that's it. And then you're eligible, as long as you do not have a DD-214 or discharge papers that say dishonorable or bad conduct under general court-martial. Now, I've been doing this job for coming on 5 years now. I've probably run into 3 veterans with dishonorable discharges. It very rarely comes up. Same with even fewer with bad conduct. Now, the one group of people that really, unfortunately, we can't help, and it's a big problem as far as I'm concerned, is the National Guard. Because people who signed up for the National Guard signed up for state service and not federal. So for whatever reason, we say that makes them not eligible. And then if they're not eligible, we refer them to community resources, although I should amend that a little bit, because I wouldn't necessarily call the American Legion a community resource, and a lot of veterans who don't necessarily qualify, I'll send to them or other veteran nonprofits. And I should give a shout out to Post 133, just because they've been immeasurably helpful to so many of my veterans, and Frank and Noella, and also Robert McClish, who's not here. Now we're going to define homeless. So we go by the definition of homelessness that's used by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And under this definition, you're homeless if you are sleeping outside, if you're sleeping in a vehicle, if you're in any place not meant for habitation, so maybe an office building or something like that. And also shelters and transitional housing are considered, you're considered homeless if you're staying there. I get a lot of phone calls from people who say, please help me, I'm homeless. And I say, well, what does that mean? Because it can refer to several different situations. And then they'll say, I'm staying on my mom's couch, and I want to get my own place, but I can't. Now, unfortunately, you do not qualify as homeless. Doesn't necessarily mean there's nothing I can do for you, but you are not going to be eligible for the majority of the resources that I'm going to lay out here. If you are staying in an unsafe environment, I'll get a phone call from somebody who is, they say, my apartment has a ton of black mold. It's not safe to be there. Sorry, you're not considered homeless, not eligible. Or there's a lot of gang activity in my neighborhood. Same thing. The exception is domestic violence. If somebody is suffering domestic violence, they're pretty much eligible for everything here. And you're also not homeless if you are staying in a hotel or an Airbnb, unless there's like a third party, an official organization paying for it, in which case, technically, yes, you are. My office is the Community Resource and Referral Center in Santa Ana. So that's where all the magic happens. We've got a bunch of case managers there. Veterans will come for appointments. I do have a flyer. It is outside on the table outside the room. So if anybody wants more information on the CRRC, it'll be on that flyer. And also I'll have all contact information, that sort of thing, on the last slide. So if somebody just walks into the CRRC, we can assess them right on the spot and get them started, get them pointed in the right direction. We also have an employment coordinator on our staff, Bill Morissette. He's amazing at his job. depending on what veterans are looking for, what kind of work. I've seen him get people hired the next day. So he's very good. We also have some donated items, food, clothing, hygiene items. We've got a bunch of hygiene items. Honestly, for those other ones, not too much there, but we do have some supply. Oh, I should also mention, I'll be getting into the SSVF program in a bit, so probably nobody knows what that is, but I'll explain. But we have SSVF case managers who come by the CRRC from time to time, regularly scheduled, and also Welcome Home OC, which helps to link veterans who have vouchers with housing. So now we're going to, actually, before I get into this, does anybody have any questions about anything that I've gone through so far? Just raise your hand. Okay, not seeing any hands. So pretty much our biggest seller is our HUD-VASH program. And that is the VA's version of a Section 8 housing voucher. It's basically the exact same thing as Section 8 with a couple of slight differences. One is typically if somebody gets on a Section 8 wait list, it's going to take several months or even years before they actually are housed. We will get you a voucher. Nowadays, it's about 5 months. Historically, in my experience, it's been about 3 months, but right now it's about 5. And once they get a voucher, we'll work with them to get into an apartment, and what they pay for rent each month is going to be based on their income. So we're looking at 30% of their gross income. And then the rest is paid for by the county. In order to get HUD-VASH, a veteran must either be chronically homeless, which means homeless for at least 1 year out of the past 3, or meet other criteria. But honestly, these other criteria, just about everybody qualifies, because we're looking at people with severe disabilities, we're looking at the elderly, we're looking at families with children, and there's a couple others. And most all veterans who I speak to fall into one of those categories. And I should mention this HUD-VASH voucher. Once you get it, you can hold on to it for the rest of your life. And if, say, a married veteran who has a HUD-VASH voucher is deceased, then it passes on to their spouse. So it's a pretty good deal. Next up is supportive services for veteran families. So there are a few different organizations that receive grants under the VA, under the SSVF program. In Orange County, this is going to be Volunteers of America, U.S. Vets, and 1736 Family Crisis Center. And what they can do with these grants is work with either veterans who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. We'll start off with risk of homelessness, which is homelessness prevention. So if a veteran calls me and says, hey, I've fallen behind on my rent a month or maybe 2 months, who knows, maybe even 3 months, and my landlord issued me a pay or quit notice. What do I do? Can I get this rent paid back? The answer is yes, you can under this program. So I'll connect them with one of those 3 organizations that I mentioned earlier, and it's never 100% guarantee. Nothing in my world is, but most of the time they can get that rent paid back, so it's a big deal. Now, if there's a veteran who actually is homeless, then we're looking at the Rapid Rehousing Program, where they can work with them to find it. Really, it depends on the veteran's financial situation. Sometimes they'll just use it to rent a room. Sometimes they will get a studio, 1 bedroom, whatever it is they can afford. And then SSVF will pay the security deposit, and then after that, it's on a case-by-case basis. But they can pay for a maximum of 9 months' worth of rent. So again, it's potentially a good chunk of change up front. It's just the veteran better have the income to maintain the housing after that money runs out. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem. We're looking at eviction again. Now, after a veteran completes either the homelessness prevention or the rapid rehousing program, then there's the potential to transfer them into the shallow subsidy program, under which SSVF will pay, and I'm sorry, I don't know the exact number. It's between 35 and 50%. But it's between 35 and 50% of the veteran's rent for a total of 2 years. And then it's even possible at the end of those 2 years to re-up that and get them another 2 years. So again, this is potentially a very great benefit. Now, our grant and per diem program is our transitional housing. So typically, historically, what I've done is if a veteran is looking for transitional housing, I will refer them to Villages at Cabrillo in Long Beach, which is run by U.S. vets. Now, unfortunately, that has been put on hold. They're not accepting admissions at the moment, but I'm expecting that to change maybe at any time. So basically, that is, veteran would get into if it's a male veteran, they would get a room with 2 other male veterans, 1 or 2, female with 1 or 2 other female veterans, and they are fed and everything, and they pay 30% of their income to stay there. Now, like I said, at the moment, Villages at Cabrillo is not taking admissions, so what I'm doing now is sending them to the West Los Angeles VA, because there are several different transitional housing programs that are similar to what I just described right in the Los Angeles area. We also have the domiciliary, which is on the campus of the West Los Angeles VA, which provides housing in addition to either mental health or substance use treatment. And we can also potentially look into getting them into the Veteran State Home, which is also, well, there are 8 Veteran State Homes around the state of California. There's only one that's really close to us, which is in Los Angeles. And that is for veterans who need housing and who are either elderly or disabled. And they have several different levels of care there. They do have an independent living level, but they also have assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing, depending on the veteran's needs. Now, I should also mention that for that one, depending on the program or the level that they're trying to get into, there's often a wait list, and it could be a year or maybe even 2 years. Yes, we have a question.
Yes, with regards to the HUD bash, I've heard some concerns in the past that sometimes veterans have gone to landlords to try to provide the, to apply for, to live at that location under $1 amount that's being proposed. And then they find out that they have this HUD bash, and then on occasion they'll raise that rate. Have you experienced that?
All right. What you were saying is that you've heard that when a veteran has, or when a landlord finds out that a veteran has a HUD bash voucher, they raise the nominal rate of the rent. Is that the question? My answer is I've never heard of that.
Because I've heard that from the folks sitting in front of me, but.
Well, I'd like to discuss that with you, but I can't really give you a better answer than that.
Great, thank you.
But I have heard of veterans saying that this landlord is refusing to take me on in the first place because I have a HUD bash voucher. Now, that is actually technically illegal. Landlords are prohibited from declining people just because they have, well, now this is going to get a little complicated. So,
Is there an advocacy group that can help people that are in that situation?
I was asked if there's an advocacy group that could help people. I would go to Fair Housing with that.
Well, all that are, you said how if they have to take the vouchers, and all landlords, is it all landlords?
Yeah, I'll answer that in just a second. How are we doing on time? I don't know how deep down the rabbit hole. Should I take care of this offline?
6:15. Well, we go till 6:30.
Okay. Okay, well, I think I've got at least a little more time. Now, what was the question? Oh, so I told you that if a veteran has a HUD-VASH voucher, then they pay a percentage of their rent towards or they pay a percentage of their income towards their rent, and the rest is paid for by the county. Now, the county is not going to pay for them to be in an apartment that's like $5,000 a month. So there's a maximum amount that the apartment can be listed at, depending on the area. And if it's over that, then you can't use the voucher for it. So my answer to your question is, as long as it is under that payment standard, under that maximum amount, then yes, they are legally required to accept a voucher.
So like the Section 8 ones, they have to file, the landlords have to file an application, and then they get approved for Section 8, and then they can take it to Section 8 people. This is for any landlord, if it's under a certain amount for a 1-bedroom, or under a certain amount for a 2-bedroom, any landlord, you can give them that voucher, and they have to accept it, right? Is that?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow, that's great.
Now, one thing is, if you apply for an apartment building and they do not accept your application, good luck proving that it was because you have a HUD-VASH voucher. So who knows how much teeth that regulation actually has.
You show it after, right? You show it after you're approved. No? Or,
Well, they're going to know all your financial information. So they're going to know.
What happens to that veteran that doesn't have any credit back?
That's a good question. He's asking what happens if a veteran has poor credit.
Yeah.
That veteran is often going to have a really hard time getting into housing because they still have to go through the credit check. Now, the one very good thing is we've been building project-based sites like crazy. Now, most veterans get what's called a tenant-based voucher, which means we simply hand them the voucher and say, okay, go find yourself an apartment. But nowadays, they've been building them so fast, I don't even know how many. I think there's about 12. They just opened up a couple new ones. And these are apartment buildings that are specifically for veterans. And so, veterans in the HUD-VASH program. And so if we go that route, well, then we're bypassing the credit check. And the project-based thing is great news as far as I'm concerned, and we've actually been having trouble filling the units that are just opening up. Brand new.
How can a veteran that's been homeless for over a year have credit?
How can a veteran who's been homeless for over a year have credit? Most of them don't, or their credit has been degrading over time. I don't really know how to answer that question.
so that's the best route then for somebody that's been homeless for over a year, is to go.
Project-based housing?
Yeah, because they don't have to have credit. They don't have
Yes, in most cases, I would definitely say that project-based housing is best for chronically homeless veterans, and we prioritize chronically homeless veterans with project-based.
Now, how can you prove that somebody's chronically based? Because if somebody's living half the time with their mom and then they get kicked out or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like 6:30, okay.
Yeah. There's actually not too much more, but yes, I'm going to continue with the presentation, and we can talk offline if you'd like more information. Okay, now substance use treatment, this doesn't technically align perfectly with homelessness, but the thing is there's an awful lot of veterans who are homeless who also deal with these issues. And so they can receive both transitional housing and substance use treatment at Villages at Cabrillo, which is the transitional housing place that I mentioned in Long Beach, Phoenix House, which is in Santa Ana, and Safe Refuge is also in Long Beach. And I mentioned the domiciliary earlier, they can receive treatment there. And just for good measure, I put we also offer outpatient treatment. Now, some veterans are homeless and they're really not appropriate to even live by themselves. And so that's why I threw this assisted living slide on here. I mentioned the veteran state home earlier. We can also place a referral for community residential care, which is, we have a social worker at the VA who basically her job is to link veterans who need transitional housing with places that are appropriate for them and they can afford. And we have a list of VA-approved assisted living facilities. And also, for good measure, We can, if somebody actually is housed, we can send them home health aides to maybe change bandages or take care of stuff like that a few times a week. And that is all that I have. Here is all the contact information for, let's see, who's myself, my colleague Abby, who does the same job as I do, and she's absolutely amazing. And there's my office. Again, I've got a flyer for my office outside as well as my business cards. And I don't have any immediate plans for right after this, so if anybody wants to discuss any of this stuff further, I'd be happy to talk to you. Thank you. Yes, one more question.
Were you able to verify eligibility without a DD 214 in hand?
Question is whether we're able to verify eligibility without a DD 214. So, well, if a veteran has either received health care from the Long Beach VA or from any other VA, then we're just going to know, right? But otherwise, pretty much we got to see the DD 214.
Which you can help, or we can help facilitate
Yes.
ordering that from the National.
I can order it from the National Archives. In certain situations, I can also get it much quicker, but I can talk to you about that offline if you want. Any other questions? No? Oh, thank you again for having me. I mean, I really believe in this stuff, and
So before we conclude with our town hall, I would like to repeat the two numbers that I mentioned earlier today, in case you need any resources. We want to help. Our veterans will always be prioritized. You should be. And we won't know what your needs are if you don't let us know. So please let us know if you have any questions. This information, this contact information will all be on our website as well for those who would like to have that. And I'd like to encourage those who are experiencing homelessness or know someone who is experiencing homelessness to contact our homeless and behavioral health team at 714-536-5576. Or for veterans looking for information on resources and assistance, please contact our Veteran Resource Center located in the Central Library, and it will remain in our Central Library, at number 714-375-5111. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you so much.